What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Michael and welcome to FudgeMuppet. We're back with some brand new Skyrim builds. Last time we gave you a modded sharpshooter build, but now we have a very special delivery for all of the vanilla players out there. This build may be vanilla, but this character is far from ordinary. Hailing from the distant lands of elsewhere, this is the Desert Mage. The Desert Mage, born under the waxing moon of Massa, was blessed by Azura, and with the might of the elements on his side, nothing will stand between him and fulfilling his destiny. The Desert Mage was the chieftain of a tribe of ferocious beasts, some far larger than him, but no one ever crossed the Desert Mage, for his sorcery was powerful enough to bend the wrath of nature to his will. With the power of wind and thunder, the Desert Mage is a living, breathing storm, a tempest that never subsides. By the time you have his tribal gear enchanted, you'll be able to cast destruction, conjuration, and restoration spells without sparing too much thought for magicka. This is the perfect build for anyone itching to play a spell-slinging sorcerer. Before we get into it, don't forget that you can find timestamps to each section of the video just below in the description. But with that said, let's kick things off with the Desert Mage's race, standing stone, and stats. The Desert Mage is a Khajiit of Anequina, which gives him two unique abilities. The first is Night Eye, which allows him to see clearly in darkness for 60 seconds as many times as he wants to each day. The second is his Claws, which means unarmed melee damage deals 15 points of damage. Pretty good for early game stages. He will use the Lord Stone for an additional 50 points of armor rating and a 25% boost to magic resistance. To anyone wondering what about the classic Atronach Stone, while it is great for a mage, it does interfere with summoning, and summoning Atronachs with this build, we felt it kind of could get annoying. Now as for the stat spread, 50% will go into health to keep us alive, and 50% will go into magicka. Eventually you will be able to more or less cast destruction spells for free, but until that's achievable, and for your conjuration and restoration, which are also reduced somewhat, this magicka investment is still very useful. Now for the backstory. The sands of Anequina were the color of polished silver under the lunar light on the night of his birth. The Desert Mage opened his eyes for the very first time and was greeted by the enthralling majesty of Massa and Secunda, dominating the glimmering expanse of sky before him. Secunda, the smaller of the moons, was a full, perfectly rounded circle, while Massa, the giant, was a waxing crescent beside it. Nobody knew better than the tribal Khajiit of Elsewhere's northern state what this meant. The Desert Mage was to be a Cathay. Cathay is the name given to the breed of Khajiit similar in size and shape to most men and mer on Tamriel, although they are quite large in stature. It was a noble, honest form, not the largest by any means, but not the smallest either. His father, along with many of the cats in this nomadic Anequina tribe, were Sench or Senchrat Khajiit. These Khajiit were more akin to tigers, large and powerful beings, but with the right training and a reverence for the gods of the Khajiiti pantheon, his father knew the Desert Mage would grow into a formidable leader. Many moons later, the Desert Mage became the chieftain of the tribe, and as his father predicted, even the toughest Senchrat battle cats knew their place, never daring to cross the Mage. They resided in the heart of the desert, approximately an equal distance from each of the 4 cities of northern Elsewhere. Many Khajiit lived in stone houses in the cities of June, Orcrest, or Riverhold, but to the tribal cats of the desert there was no alternative to living life under the stars and the moons, in full view of the gods. Life was simple for them. By day they would hunt the deserts for game to feed the tribe, and when the sun set beyond the western horizon, the Desert Mage held sermons for his people. He told archetypal stories from their sacred pantheon about showing reverence to the moons and to all of Fadome's children, but predominantly Azura, the aunt to the races of men and mer, and the mother to the Khajiit. Nirni, Azura's sister, may have given birth to mortals, but Fadome bestowed one gift upon Azura, and that was to choose one race which she could mold to her liking. Azura chose to reshape the forest-dwelling mortals of Elsewhere, making them the fastest, the cleverest, and the most beautiful of all the living creatures. For those gifts, the Khajiit were to be eternally grateful. Feeling betrayed by her sister's presumptuousness, Nirni had Elsewhere cursed, turning their verdant, lush grasslands into dry, barren deserts. However, Azura was one step ahead, for she gave the Khajiit the Lunar Lattice, the ability to change forms depending on the lunar phase, and as a result the Khajiit were forever able to adapt and survive the curse. Many Khajiit now lived in cities in comfort, but the Desert Mage's tribe did not. They chose not to flee the parched wastes, instead weathering the sandstorms, living as nomads exposed to the elements, for the sand exfoliates and strengthens their pelts. The city dwellers were weak in comparison, and they did not show their gratitude to Azura for her sacrifices. The Desert Mage often spoke of the dangers of living as tribal nomads, and the people were loyal because they trusted he would protect them. For that reason, the Desert Mage trained tirelessly. He left the physical combat to the Centrat cats, instead choosing to master the wonders of magic. Due to their location in the center of the desert, traveling merchants often passed their camps, and when they did, the mage was quick to inquire about spell tomes. He had built up quite a collection over the years, and some nights when the hypnotic, narcotic effects of skooma had put the tribe to a sound sleep, the Desert Mage wandered out into the dunes to practice his magic. One blustery day, a merchant caravan passed their encampment. The Desert Mage had been experiencing an ominous tempest of anticipation in his mind. Something was wrong. The caravan was in a hurry, desperately trying to reach the city of Orcrest before sundown. The scholars of the Mages Guild in June had forecast a devastating sandstorm due to hit Anequina at dusk. It would be a great scourge crossing the land, and everyone was warned to seek refuge in stone shelters. This stirred unrest in the tribe, and when the Desert Mage ushered the caravan on without them, the Khajiit began to panic. The Desert Mage assured them all that it would be fine and that he would see to it. As the sun settled in the west, painting the sand red, the tribe took cover in the feasting tent, and they all smoked a little skooma to settle their nerves. Alone, the chieftain emerged from the tent, naked as the day he was born, exposing his full self to the rapidly approaching storm. He muttered a quick prayer to Kanathi, the goddess of the elements, and then a longer one to Azura. With the large tent 100 paces behind him, the Desert Mage began to cast spells. When the winds started battering him with 1,000,000 grains of sand, he responded with a mighty whirlwind cloak. The air around him began to defy the forces of nature, like a whirlpool disrupting a current. The gale came from the north, and all across Anequina, the wind blew south, except in this one spot. Here the wind span in circles around the Desert Mage. He was soon cloaked in a veil of sand, each granule ripped from its original trajectory. The disturbance he created expanded, and like a great windbreak, the area behind him was still protected. He kept the whirlwind cloak steady, regaining his energy through faith and discipline. Gradually, the storm heightened in intensity, so powerful by the time darkness fell that huge dislodged rocks and boulders were hurtling through the air. The Desert Mage eyed them closely, tracking each boulder as it passed harmlessly beyond the camp. When more came, threatening to barrel through him and the tent beyond, he called upon his destruction magic. From the night sky above, bolts of thunder struck with destructive haste. His conjured bolts demolished the heavy boulders, and they crumbled into dust. Every strike brightened the landscape, giving him a better view through the sandstorm. He summoned chains of lightning which erupted from his hands, stopping countless rocks in their tracks. The Desert Mage single-handedly meddled with the forces of nature, channeling Azura's deific power, and to the tribe behind him it must have felt like any other peaceful night, save for the tumultuous cracks of thunder resonating across the land. By midnight the storm had passed. Exhausted, he returned to the tent, and was fast asleep without needing so much as a puff of moon sugar. That night he had vivid dreams. He saw the moons align in the sky, signifying the birth of a new Mane, the spiritual leader of the Khajiit people. Only the prophesied ruler was not being born in elsewhere. He could see a huge snow-covered mountain in the backdrop. This was a vision from Azura. She had chosen him to seek out the new Mane, to return him to his native homeland. Only that mountain could only exist far to the north. After a few days' preparation, the tribe elected a new chieftain, and the Desert Mage set out on his quest to find the legendary hero who was born to the north. He soon discovered this mountain was likely the throat of the world, and that meant traveling to Skyrim. Azura provided him with safe passage through Cyrodiil, but everything went awry on the border of Skyrim when he was captured by human soldiers. After escaping Helgen and discovering his ability to absorb dragon souls, he will have the epiphany that his vision had not shown him the birth of a new Mane, but instead it showed his own rebirth as the Dragonborn. As a pious beast, he will do his best to make Azura and his gods proud in his adventures, and he will do his best to protect those who cannot protect themselves. But due to multiple Daedric princes appearing in the Khajiit pantheon, he won't necessarily be the purest character ever to grace Skyrim. He is a skilled mage, and he believes the gods have bestowed him with the power to protect the province, and even Tamriel at large, from the returning dragon menace, of course. He will therefore follow the main story in the Dragonborn DLC. He will seek out the College of Winterhold to enhance his magical powers. He could definitely join the Companions Guild, as he would bring something very unique to the table with his wind and thunder magic. It just feels like a very cool addition to the group, and he is used to being the only magic user among warriors. He could also be very suited to becoming a werewolf if you're so inclined. Now, the Dawnguard DLC is definitely an option, siding with the Dawnguard against the vampires, of course. Now, this cat will also do Azura's quest, following her every command due to his immense reverence for her. This means he will not betray her for the Black Star. Due to their presence in the Khajiit pantheon as Merunes, Mafala, and Sangin, he may be tempted to follow their Daedric quests, obviously for Merunes Dagon, Mafala, and Sanguine, but that could see him take quite a dark path, so have fun role-playing that if you want to. Now that we have the Desert Mage's backstory, role-playing, and factions sorted out, let's take a look at how that'll impact his skills, spells, perks, and his overall playstyle. The main skills for this build will be Destruction, Conjuration, Restoration, Enchanting, and Light Armor. Now before we get into the essential perks from each of these skills, I'll quickly run through the spells the Desert Mage will specialize in. From the Destruction school, there's Whirlwind Cloak, Wall of Storms, Lightning Storm, Thunderbolt, and Chain Lightning. These spells will sum up his tempestuous aesthetic, controlling the elements of thunder and wind. From the Conjuration school, there's Ash Guardian, Storm Atronach, Ash Spawn, and Soul Trap. These are important precursors to your main damage-dealing spells. Use these in preparation for the fight and for ongoing support throughout the battle. Then from Restoration, Close Wounds is the big one, but any other self-healing spells are useful along the way. The Desert Mage will also use a couple of shouts which fit with his magic style. These are Stormcall and Cyclone. With those mentioned, let's talk essential perks. Even Kanathi, the goddess of the elements to the Khajiit, would have swelled with pride and astonishment at the sight of one of the mortals defying the power of the sandstorm that night in Anequina, and while no one was there to witness his brilliant feats, the gods cannot falter his destruction skill. From the destruction tree, take the third branch up to Disintegrate, the fourth branch up to Adept Destruction, and then the far right branch. You'll notice we only go up to Adept Destruction despite using Expert and Master spells. Well, this is thanks to enchanting, so your spellcasting cost actually becomes so negligible that you can save those perk points. Some magic is far too powerful to properly be harnessed alone, and with Conjuration, a sorcerer can call upon external forces to bolster his strength. With this school, the Desert Mage will not only summon allies on the battlefield, he will also harvest souls to use in enchanting via the Soul Trap spell. Doing so is his secret to becoming the most powerful mage in Tamriel. From the Conjuration skill tree, go for the far left branch around to Twin Souls, and then the far right branch up to Expert Conjuration. Twin Souls is the big boy here, as having two conjured Atronachs will provide you with a great amount of cover as you set up your devastating thunder strikes. There is strength in numbers, and there is no one who understands that adage better than a former chieftain. He may not have his tribe at his side, but he has restoration spells to keep him alive no matter the odds. From the Restoration skill tree, take Respite, Regeneration, the fourth branch up to Adept Restoration, both ranks of Recovery, and then Restoration dual casting. Recovery will increase your magical regeneration speed by 50%, and Regeneration will improve the amount healing spells cure by 50%. When the souls are collected, the Desert Mage heads to the enchanting table, and with the gear he creates here, he will be able to cast mighty spells with unbelievable endurance. From the enchanting skill tree, follow the middle branch up to and including extra effect. Enchanting allows armor to not only protect against physical harm, but also encapsulate the magical benefits usually attributed to robes. Now the Desert Mage can have the best of both worlds, lightweight armor which doesn't hinder his movement, and the casting cost reductions usually found on robes. From the light armor skill tree, take everything except for matching set. Unhindered will keep the armor from slowing you down, and deft movement will give you a 10% chance of avoiding all damage from melee attack while wearing all light armor pieces. With all of those skills, spells, and perks in mind, let's run through the playstyle. Start off by summoning two of whatever you like depending on your situation, be it Ash Guardians, Storm Atronachs, Ash Spawn, whatever you like, and cast them relatively far away from you and in a good position to attack the enemy. We've had our Cloak interfere with our Ash Guardians before, so that's why we say cast those far away from you. Then after bringing your summons into play, cast that Whirlwind Cloak. This helps to fling away melee attackers who get too close, getting them away from you and into the safe range of the magic attacks from you and the various other attacks of your summons. Heal yourself when damaged and cast Soul Trap before you kill things to trap souls to help with any enchanting needs. Obviously, after you're set up, up, blast everyone with as much destruction magic as you want, be it the Master Shock spell or other ones like Chain Lightning for area damage or Thunderbolt for easy single target damage. Don't forget to summon storms with your Dragon Shouts and to send enemies flying with the Cyclone Shout. If worse comes to worst, you can use a bit of unarmed, but this will almost never be necessary, especially once you've reduced your casting costs. It will be helpful in the early game though. A cool combo we came across while playing the Desert Mage involved summoning your Daedra and then casting Wall of Storms around you in a circle after casting Whirlwind Cloak. Then stand in your Wall of Storms, casting the Lightning Master spell, so you're blasting everyone to death, and if they come to get you, they take damage from your shock damage walls, and then they might get flung back into these shock damage walls after coming through them from reaching you and getting hit by your Whirlwind Cloak. It's like a cataclysmic maelstrom of gale force winds and electricity. Now as for the gear, the Desert Mage will be decked out in an Elsewhere tribal aesthetic that we came up with. We achieved this by mixing the Forsworn headdress, boots and gauntlets with the scaled horn armor. The Forsworn headdress on a Khajiit is actually different. It widens to fit the head and looks absolutely massive, so it fits this tribal theme really well. Then add a ring and necklace of your choice, so long as they can be enchanted. On the ring and necklace, apply Fortify Destruction and Fortify Conjuration enchantments. On the headpiece and chest piece, go with Fortify Destruction again, but also Fortify Restoration instead of Conjuration. Now on the boots, we've got Resist Fire and Resist Shock, and then put Fortify Magicka and Fortify Unarmed on the gauntlets. We chose Fortify Unarmed as it makes for a fun backup plan should you ever run out of Magicka. Now as a Khajiit, you're guaranteed to be a natural with your claws, but this just takes things to another level. The only other things to remember are Heartstones for your Ash Guardians, and then Azura's Star to capture souls. Remember, this needs to be Azura's Star and not the Black Star. This build will be doing right by Azura. And there you have it guys, our latest vanilla build for Skyrim, the Desert Mage. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like, and if you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Don't forget that timestamps are in the description along with links to all of our social media accounts. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Michael, and I look forward to nerding out with you again very soon.